This is the north channel of the River Lee here, just here to my left, and it's actually the north channel of the River Lee. If we go over another 1,000 meters over that direction, there'll be the south channel of the River Lee. And so really, the city, Cork City, is surrounded by water, essentially, the two channels of the River Lee. So it's an island city. It used to be all marshland, waterways, etc. And there used to be a walled city with just one real long street, going way back a few centuries. And then they expanded and so forth. But if you've got two channels of a river surrounding a city, you need lots of bridges. So we have 31 bridges. And that bridge just back behind us now, that was right next to the bus stop, is Mary Elms Bridge. And she's one of our lady heroes, Mary Elms. She saved over 200 children from the Holocaust and World War II. She was a scholar, Trinity College Dublin, first in her class, won a scholarship to London Business School of Economics, where she won the gold medal for achievement there. And then she started her career and was doing very, very well. But World War II started, and she saw how vulnerable children were, and she wanted to save children from that horror, really, essentially, and she saved over 200 of them. So she's really special. She's from Cork. She's from Ballintemple, just about 2 kilometres out the road there. St. Patrick's Bridge, our main bridge leading onto St. Patrick's Street, our main street. It's a real long street, a little bit curvy, nice wide street on there. But that was all water previously. It was all waterways. And everything was on the first floor, essentially, and there were steps up. And they were diagonal steps, not quite like these steps. Most of them were diagonal at that time because they had to go up a full first floor on that front. And where Mary Elms is from, where she grew up in Ballintemple, is also the home place of Cillian Murphy, our Oscar winner, Academy Award winner. Cillian Murphy, Mr. Oppenheimer, also grew up in Ballintemple itself. And I grew up in Ballintemple from the age of 8, but yeah, I went a different path, as they say. So here, Christy Ring Bridge is the green bridge here. Christy Ring is the greatest hurler of all time. Hurling is one of our national games. It's actually the fastest field sport in the world. This is where they have a stick and they have a slitter, it's called. It's a little ball, size of a tennis ball or baseball, and the bat is, it's flatter than a baseball bat. But it's a really, really fast game. One team can get a score at one end of the field, and 120 meters back the other direction, the other team can get another score, within 3 or 4 seconds. These people are so skilled. The men and the ladies that play it, they're all amateurs, pure amateurs. But they will get 40,000 at a game. At the All Ireland final, they get over 80,000 at the All Ireland final, etc. This is our newer newer opera house in front of us here. It was burnt down, unfortunately, in 1955 by accident. It was a beautiful neo-Gothic architecture, circular type building, and but then it was replaced with this building here, quite a square building, and the glass front was added in the 1980s. But some really good gigs in there. It's a more intimate venue, probably about 1,100, 1,200 people capacity. So that's our opera house. Now we've crossed the river, we've gone across the North Channel, so this is all reclaimed land we're driving on now. This is all either previous marshland or previous waterways. Behind the church here, which is St. Mary's Catholic Church, there's Shandon Bells. Now Shandon Bells is one of our more famous landmarks. It's a 4-face clock tower. At the top has a weather vane, 4 meters long, gold salmon, a leaping salmon essentially, which is for Christianity and for knowledge, and also because there was a lot of salmon, and there still is, but there was huge amounts of it previously, salmon in this river, the River Lee. So you can actually pay to go in there, about €7 or €8. You go up over 100 steps, and you get a fabulous view near the top of the building, overlooking the city and the suburbs from there. When you do that, you can also play a tune, about a 20-second or 30-second tune. They have numbers on the bells that you can play. These are carillon bells, and there's 4 of them up there, and they each weigh the weight of 2 elephants, right? So it's amazing actually how that building there is there since 1722, still standing. They did major repairs to it recently actually, and It's got a few affectionate little stories about it, a few idiosyncrasies, especially for the clock. The problem with that clock is that it has a north clock, a south drawbridge that would lift up and down. It was the only way in and out of the city, essentially. So that's how they, collected taxes, and it protected them, and so on and so forth, by having the drawbridges around the walled city. So we're literally going parallel to that single street that used to be the long street in the walls in the walled town, and it's over there about 200 yards. So again, this is all reclaimed land that we're driving on now. If you look up to the roof, here there's a red brick building here, uh, lovely Byzantine architectural style. Here it's a St. Francis Church. It's a Roman Catholic Irish church. It's beautiful inside and outside, on it. And in front of it then is the rear side of our courthouse, of our main courthouse. So you get a glance of it if you look off to the left. I'll be turning right because we're heading west towards the Ring of Kerry. So we'll be turning onto the Western Road. But if I turned left, I'd be turning onto Washington Street, named after George Washington, the first president of the United States. So when we gained back our independence in 1922, we renamed the street, which used to be called King George's Street, to Washington Street. So as mentioned, turning right, and I'm turning onto Western Road. We try to name buildings and streets and locations, sometimes obvious names, as obvious as we can make them. This is heading west, so it's called Western Road. But then, of course, people get creative as well, and they give places names that are very creative, and you wonder what it refers to. But this is heading west, this road. Many people would have heard of St. Patrick, St. Patrick being the patron saint, now the male patron saint of Ireland, because we have a female patron saint now of Ireland as well, also St. Bridget. But as regards Cork, the main saint for Cork is St. Finbar. And St. Finbar founded Cork City, and he did so by he set up his first monastery actually at the rising of the River Lee, where the source of the River Lee is. It's a beautiful place called Gugambara in West Cork. It's about 50 kilometres out the road, and he set up his first monastery there back in the 6th century. And then the folklore will tell you that he chased the monster up the river, all the way up the River Lee, from Gugambara to here. And this is still the River Lee here. And just here to the left, before these higher apartment buildings, just before the white apartment buildings, if you look to the left, you'll hopefully see the spires of St. Finbar's Cathedral. And that's where he's supposedly banished the monster, the monster, I should say, and set up his first monasteries and so forth. So there's the spires of St. Finbar's. And that's very close to another pedestrian bridge who's named after another lady hero of ours, right? Nano Nagle. And Nano Nagle was responsible for providing education at a time in secrecy when the Irish Catholics were not allowed to be educated. And she used to have head schools and so forth. She founded the Presentation Sisters and so forth. And all this area now since has kept that tradition, right? About 80% of the buildings on the left and right here, around 80% of them, are something to do with third level university education, right? They're either accommodation, lecture halls, sports grounds, exhibition centres, conference halls. It's nearly all to do with education itself. These are the gates of University College Cork. That university opened in 1845 as Queen's University Cork. There was three Queen's Universities in Ireland: Queen's University Cork, Queen's University Galway, and Queen's University Belfast. And now, since Northern Ireland is the six counties that did not join the Republic of Ireland. That still remains Queen's Belfast, but we're called University College Cork and University College Galway. When it opened in 1845, only boys, young men, rich sons of merchant princes, right? They could afford to pay the lecturers themselves. Only 115 students. That's all there was, right? I just want to show you this first, right? A lot of people say this looks like the Harry Potter buildings. This is the oldest part of University College Cork, right? And on the other side is that of the quadrant. So I will show my senior age, I should say, a few times today. But there was a great film years ago called Chariots of Fire, and they had a quadrant and they had a big race in the college. It's very similar to this quadrant here in University College Cork. And I'd mentioned that there was 115 students only, and they were all male. Today we're so proud we have 23,500 students going to University College Cork, right? Not only that, a kilometre out the road here is Munster Technical University, a further 18,000 students out in Munster Technical University, and there's two other third level colleges with about 4,000 students in total in them. So there's about 44,500 students every year getting third level university standard education. And that has had a tremendously positive effect on Cork City and Cork County in being able to attract big companies, large multinationals, etc., and provide lots of really, really good employment. And we'll talk about some of those a little bit later on. But yeah, so about 44,500 students in this little 2K ring area. Right hand side, Buckley's, builders. They left Cork for about 14 years, went to Boston, Massachusetts, saw these types of houses, colonial style houses here. They came back, they built 6 identical ones, right? These were the most poshest, luxurious houses in Cork for decades, really, essentially. So they were Buckley's builders. Being builders, they brought the plans back with them and made those houses. All here, clinics. This is where a lot of the medical students, veterinary and dentistry, I should say, get a lot of their initial experience and practical experience. There's a Bon Secours University Hospital just behind it, and there's another CUH called Cork University Hospital about a kilometre out to the left. This is the Western Campus of University College Cork. It's one of the newer buildings, and it's the largest campus in University College Cork, and you know, suitably called the Westgate campus because it's on the western part of University College Cork. And some other another fact that a lot of people will not have heard of is that we had a famous professor in University College Cork as well, called Professor George Boole. And Professor George Boole created and invented Boolean logic, which is actually the principles of our modern day computers. So your laptops, your mini computers, your digital phones would be based on Boolean logic. So he came up with that whole principles, and then other really smart, intelligent people converted that into microprocessors and then into computers and so forth. So that's Professor George Boole. He was a lecturer and professor in University College Cork. Right hand side here, half houses. About 5 or 6 students typically would be sharing half houses there. That would be normal accommodation for the students, for about 90% of the students. And then for 5 to 10% of the students that either were really intelligent, got scholarships, or they are lucky to have parents that have a bit of extra money, would stay in a place like here, like these luxury apartments here, on just to the left. If you look quickly to the right here, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute, but you'll see a grey building. So I'll bring your attention back to that grey building in a minute, after we just mention one or two other things. So here to the left, if you look up, and you won't get a crick in your neck because it's not that high, it's about 15, 16 stories high. Used to be the highest building in Ireland. It was our county hall, well, it still is our county hall. But yeah, it was the highest building in Ireland for a long, long time, up to about 2008 we did the leasing, I think, so that's probably 20 years ago. Here now, so if we look across here, you'll see that's the River Lee. It's gone to a single channel now. We're outside the city bounds, right? So it's no longer a north channel and a south channel. This is a single channel of the River Lee. They used to have fantastic music festivals out here called Siam Lee on the grass grounds here. I was very, very lucky to go and see U2, who played out here in the 1980s. What a day! Fantastic day, fantastic weather for Ireland, and of course, fantastic music from U2. Brilliant. Shame Cushly. So that great building back there is about half redeveloped now. It shut down about 25 years ago. A bit of a sad history. It was Cork's and Munster's psychiatric hospital, so a bit sad for some of the families in the Cork and Munster area. Um, but they closed it down about 25 years ago, and about 15 years ago, a developer bought it and is redeveloping it into private accommodation and university college accommodation. So it's about halfway through now, but that's the widest building in Ireland there. And speaking of big things, etc., well, first I'll just point out this. That is supposed to be this red sculpture on the right hand side, Loch Nessie, right? Or Nessie the monster, right? There's a Loch Ness monster in Scotland, but ours is called Nessie from Cork, right? And that's the monster that St. Finbar supposedly, folklore, chased up the river, all the way up the river from Gugambara to the site of where the cathedral and monastery and early education all started. So, where Finbar taught, let Munster learn is the motto for St. Finbar. So, anybody, obvious names, right? Anybody might, if they don't know, might give a guess to what the name of this road is. Any guessers?
No.
Don't worry, I'll take you out of your pain quite quickly. I don't hear any. All right. Okay, I might not have heard you folks, but it's called the Straight Road, right? Okay, why is it the Straight Road? Because up to about 35 years ago, and when Ireland weren't joined the EU, we had no highways at all, right? So this was actually the longest, straightest road in all of Ireland, right? They used to have hot rod racing here, motor car racing here, motorcycle racing here. There was even tram tracks out to Blarney and Blarney Castle from here. So it's called the Straight Road. The full name of it is called the Carrigrohan Straight Road. But if you said that to someone from Cork, they probably look at you a bit funny and kind of go, yeah, you just mean the straight road, right? So that's what it's affectionately known as. So hopefully, folk, that's given you a bit of flavour for the suburbs and some of the city of the streets we went by. And, you know, of the city we like to, when you book from here, that's where we like to give you a bit of extra information. And as mentioned, I'll be doing contrasts between Cork and Kerry later on. And so sit back now and enjoy for about 20 minutes or so. Take in the landscape, the animals, the farms, and then we'll come back and we'll be talking about some other things in about 20 minutes. Enjoy. 95% green fields, all different colours green on the way out, and that's because Cork is very, very strong on the dairy side of it, with dairy cows, etc. We'll talk about that a bit later. And then the 15% roughly brown golden fields are to do with our distilleries and breweries for fresh source supplies there, input ingredients. Here to the left is some overflow water. But if we look to the right, just going up this small bridge here, you see an even smaller bridge nearly covered by water up there. And it used to be the main bridge and it used to be the main road here. And in the late 50s, early 60s, they needed more electricity and so forth in this area. And to do so, they needed more water as the source of energy. And they wanted to create 2 dams and a dam and a power plant here. So they did. They flooded, purpose flooding, man flooding, about a 12 by 12 kilometres square, and with water in this area, and that became the source of the dam and the power plants. One is in Inniscarra, which is close to the Ballincollig. We bypassed Ballincollig on the highway on the way out here, and there's another one then further out here called Clondrohid Power Station, and this water provides the sourcing of those power plants itself. Probably in about, what days is it there? 2 or 3 weeks maximum. For about 8 weeks then, when the younger kids are really off, which is what we call our primary schools here. That's for 12-year-olds and under, essentially. But you'll see a lot of activity out here on these man-made lakes, I suppose you could call them now. You know, between windsurfing, rowing, kayaking, fishing, etc. For about an 8-week period. Yeah, once the weather is all doing well. So when they did this, they had to move quite a number of families. So it was a trying time, a challenging time for those families, because some of them had lived in that house with their parents, grandparents, you know, and so on, and previous generations. So they were moved, they were all relocated. If you look left here, you see a lot of black sheep and black lambs, right? Compared to normal in terms of the percentage of population. Now a lot of them are up the hills here at the moment, but still we'll see that they're probably mainly black, and that's very unusual. Usually it'd be 5% or less, really. The remainder of the herd would be white. This farmer's probably doing something different from that front. And they used to have another use for black sheep going back many years ago, and still actually today in some of the more mountainous areas, which you will see in Kerry. But if the farmer was very, very busy, they would count the black sheep first, and if all the black sheep were there, then they said, and they had a real busy day and still work to do, they might stop there and not count the white sheep, or else they would count the white sheep really, really quickly and not worry too much about it and figure that they're all there. And you'll also see as we go a bit more into Kerry, very much a sheep landscape, and you'll notice some of the sheep will have different colours on their backs, red or blue or yellow, and that again is because in many of the fields, and certainly in the mountainous areas, there's not a lot of borders between one farm and another farm, so the sheep do move from one farm to another, so that's how they're able to give it back to their neighbour farmer, etc., by them having different colours on their back. So this bridge is going over the flooded area, but also this is part of the River Lee. It became a bit deeper and wider here when they flooded it, and about up to 30 kilometres down that direction to the left would be Gugambara, but we're going to be heading right today now towards Kerry and Killarney. Gugambara then is, as mentioned, the source of that River Lee. town is called Macroom Town. It has a very long main street but quite narrow, and this bypass was put in place about 3 years ago now, and it's been a very good time saver for people travelling from Cork to Killarney. Probably takes about 15 minutes off what is a relatively short journey between Cork and Killarney. But it bypasses a number of towns and villages on the way, and Macroom would be one of them. And Macroom also, off to the left of Macroom is a place called Angira, which is called the Wooded Forest and the Wooded River. And that's again from the purpose flooding when that happened in the late 50s. And they also had a festival ran for about 15-20 years in Macroom. There's a Macroom Castle at one end of the village. Beautiful grounds inside the Macroom Castle. Lovely river flowing through it. There's a golf club in there now as well. But they used to hold a 3-day and 2-night music concert there called the Mountain Dew Festival. And Mountain Dew is another word for, some people might be aware of the word moonshine. And Mountain Dew is our word for poutine, which of course, being Ireland, had potatoes as part of the ingredient, but lots of alcoholic ingredients to go with it. And when they did the purpose flooding, it created lots of little waterways and little islands. And at the time it was unregulated, and there used to be distillers and brewers, and they'd be making the poutine on the islands, and it was extremely hard to catch them, because they'd have lookout people on the different islands, and they'd just pass the word on, and they'd hide the equipment, and they'd move to a different island, pretend they're fishing, etc. Very, very hard to catch them. So it was a thriving illegal industry really for many, many years. And things got a bit stricter then because some people didn't know what they were doing. They were just trying to make money, and there was a few deaths out of people drinking poutine because it was just way over the top, too strong for people that, it was unregulated. So now it's it's a proper drink, regulated. It's still very strong. In fact, it can be about 40% proof, alcohol proof, but you can buy it in liquor stores and off licenses and pubs. Poutine, they call it Mountain Dew. And the music festival had, Van Morrison, Rory Gallagher, really top bands of the day, really, used to play there. So coming up here shortly, on the left hand side will be actually a castle, and it's called Castle of the Fairies. Carrigan Fuca would be the Gaeilge for it, Irish, and that means Rock of the Fairies or Castle of the Fairies. And you'll see it's built on a height, actually, on a very large slab of rock to give them a very good view over all the neighbouring lands and so forth. And this is where we get some folklore stories here. There's a dungeon at the bottom of that castle as well. But the folklore, the short versions of the old folklore would go that back in the day, when Irish farmers, would lose a battle, they'd lose their land essentially, and the English would take over the land, and they'd become the landlords. And they'd literally then be collecting rent from the Irish. While they worked on what was previously their own farm, essentially. So the folklore story here goes that people in Macroom, probably 3/4 of the people in Macroom won't go anywhere near that castle because they believe it's bad luck. And fairies can bring you bad luck in the Irish context, absolutely. They're not all like the fairy godmother that gives you money under your pillow when you lose your teeth when you're young. The fairies in Ireland can be a bit different. Now, if you're on the right side, they can bring you good luck as well, but you don't cross fairies in Ireland. And so the story went that there was a new sheriff after coming to the castle, and that was his headquarters. And he'd be collecting the rent. And there was a local farmer here, Johnny Lynch, and he lost his wife to sudden death, really, essentially. She just died very suddenly, very, very sad, very young age. And he was distraught, of course, and very upset. And he went on a bit of a drinking binge. And of course, you know, the day came up to pay the rent, and he was drunk and he forgot to pay the rent. So the new sheriff decided, well, we can't have this, like, I'll have to make an example. And he decided that he'd invite Johnny over for, under false pretenses, for dinner, and to talk about his wife and so forth that had passed. Brought him over anyway for dinner, sat him down to the table, and proceeded to stab him many times in the back. Killed him. Threw him down the dungeon, left him there. Anyway, 2 or 3 nights later, there was a big banquet in that castle, and all the higher-ups and the haughty-taughties were all there, high society, English and Irish, enjoying themselves, and they could see at the sheriff's table there was some people with horrified faces and some people laughing loudly. And the sheriff was telling a story, so people were inquisitive, they went over to listen, and it turned out he was telling the story about killing Johnny, the local farmer, and that they showed him, and this would be a lesson to everybody else now, and they wouldn't be late with their rent. Sure, some people said, look, that's not true, you're making it up. And he said, no, it is. He's down the dungeon. So they said, okay, bring us down. Brought him down, there he was, poor fella, after bleeding to death down there. So a number of the men grabbed him, tied him up, and threw him on the ground in the dungeon and left him there to die. And he said, good enough for Johnny, good enough for you. So I'll come back to this little goddess Grania there, sculpture, West Cork sculpture in a minute. But yeah, they left him to die, and so the problem with Macron people, or where they see the problem with the fairies, is there's 2 deaths down in that dungeon, and you know, bad fairies, bad luck. So that's why a lot of people in Macron won't go anywhere near that castle. So that's the folklore behind that. Carrigan Fuca, Castle of the Fairies, or Rock of the Fairies. And that sculpture was from a West Cork sculpture, and they put 2 sculptures up on the highway here, one on the left side as we go, and one on the right side as we're driving now, but that's on the way back. And that's goddess Anya of birth, the goddess of birth and nativity, motherhood. And on the right hand side, which should be on the way back, there's a very similar facial sculpture after a lady in her honour. When they were digging up the road to make this highway, they unfortunately came across a grave, and the grave looked like it was someone that was buried very, very carefully, and very carefully wrapped up, etc., preserved, and relics and so forth. And so they figured it must have been someone that was very, very holy, saintly, or royal, or some special person anyway. So they reburied everything, and they put a sculpture on, you know, where the graveyard is, so that nobody else would disturb it, essentially. now that we've crossed the border and we're getting into Kerry. Start off with a few comparisons and contrasts between the two neighbouring counties. They're right next to each other, Cork and Kerry. And similar for many things, but very different for many other things. And that's not a bad thing, actually. It's just a real variety at your doorstep, as they'd say, between two counties. But if we go way back to the motto and emblems for counties, Kerry would be known as the kingdom of beauty. And this came from the name Kerry, really came from the Irish Gaelic chiefs and warlords time, and there was an O'Connor family down here, and they owned many parts of Kerry. A large percentage of the land in Kerry was owned by the O'Connors, and one of their most successful chieftains and warlords was a guy called Keir O'Connor. And when you took Keir and translated that, it would translate into Kerry. So that's what you see on some of the signposts, Kerry, and that comes back to the times of the Gaelic chieftains and warlords. And so the O'Connors would have owned much of Kerry for a long time, long periods. And of course the Board Fáilte, our Irish Tourism Board, like the whole connotation and phrase of Kerry, the kingdom, and they made sure that Kerry, the kingdom of beauty, became a bit of a marketing line for Kerry, the Ring of Kerry, Dingle Peninsula, all the other beautiful places in Kerry, and hence that has pretty much stuck. It has been very successful for them in attracting people to Kerry, which is one of the highlights of tourism, really, for all of Ireland, really. And it's up there in the top 3 counties for beauty, certainly, as well. And so if you look at Cork, Cork's motto, it couldn't be different. It's called "Up the Rebels," right? So up the rebels, and you might wonder where that comes from. Well, that comes from times of when we were for centuries battling with the English. And of course, I meant to say at the start here too, I will be talking about history on and off during the day, but it is just history at this stage. We're very much in peace with England and the United Kingdom, and have been for over 100 years, and we go there on holidays, we have a great time. They come here on holidays, they have a great time. So I'm just sharing history, and some will be true and some not so true. But the rebels, why Cork was known as the rebels, because for whatever reason they used to always seem to be the last in the battle and the last to keep fighting. They just never gave up, even when they should have given up, right? But they just didn't give up. So they were known as the rebels and the rebel county, and that's where they got their name from. And of course, king of all rebels was Michael Cronins. And Michael Cronins, the person from Cork, responsible, really, probably the most ambitious and greatest achiever of all time for Irish history in terms of gaining us our 26 counties, the Republic of Ireland independence. And he did that within 6 years of his involvement, so major achievement, considering all the powerful patriots that went before him. But so he's known as the King Rebel. And if you go to any of the hurling now, I mentioned that name about Christy Ring, it's the real fastest field sport in the world, very exciting game. You'll hear people shouting when Cork are playing all the time, "Up the rebels, up the rebels," and it becomes like a chant, or a chant, I should say, and they all just start together, "Up the rebels, up the rebel, up the rebels." It gets faster and louder, and showing their support for the team. And that's just starting with emblems. When you look at jobs and the main employment areas, well, again, Kerry, mainly customer service, hospitality, tourism. Probably 80%, 75, 80% of all jobs in Kerry is something to do in those sort of three areas that are all kind of put together, you know, hotels, restaurants, national attractions, tourism sites, tour companies, you know, which is just where most of their jobs, the big majority of their jobs are based on that, in some area of that. Whereas for then for regular industry, big industry, etc., probably only single digits, you know, 5 to 8%, and maybe just over 10% involved in agriculture, farming, 5% in, say, legal profession, accountancy, office type jobs on there. And the farming that they have, 10% is it's unfortunate. Well, it's a bit what would I say, less lucrative farming than there would be in Cork, because it's mainly sheep and mountains down here. You know, now there are mixed farms with cows, etc. as well, but in comparison to Cork, very, very different. So that's Kerry, and where their main areas of employment come from. Whereas Cork is very, very opposite, really, very opposite. So, as mentioned earlier, Cork have huge numbers of third-level university-educated students, 44,500 of them every year, going through the system, and that has helped them, you know, attract a lot of multinationals, etc. So, the biggest sector would be the pharmaceutical sector. We're about 7 out of the top 10 of the world that have at least a base in Cork. They may have another base somewhere else in Ireland, but at least have one base in Cork. And they'd be the likes of Pfizer's, Eli Lilly, Novartis, Biomarin, Janssen, Johnson & Johnson, etc. Really, really, really good jobs, thousands of them, very good conditions, pensions, long-term employment, etc. So that's a huge sector for Cork in terms of employment numbers and good quality jobs. Another sector sort of aligned with that is medical devices, and some of the companies there would be Stryker Instruments and the likes of Boston Scientific, all with very big employment in the Cork City and Cork County area, and they'd be the number 2 sector really. Number 3 sector would be high technology in Cork, and lots of very big companies and lots of small companies too in the high technology sector, but they're employing thousands of people. And the likes of that would be we passed by actually a place, Dell EMC, just outside Ballincollig when we were on the highway, into our left. And they have about 1,000 employees there direct, and another 200 employees then involved in support services and so on for the campus. So about 1,200 people on that site there. In the airport business park, Amazon, the big location there, about 1,100 employees there, and then they have another bigger site in Dublin, over 2,500 employees there. But the biggest in Cork in terms of high technology, and they're there a long time, actually since the 80s, and they've gone through their real tough times in the late 90s and so on, would be Apple Computers. And Apple Computers have over 6,000 employees. There was a bronze sign there for Fitzgerald Stadium. I'll come back to that now in a couple of minutes. But yeah, they have their European marketing headquarters, European operations headquarters, their international contact centres for technical support and customer services, all in the Cork City, Cork County area, with over 6,000 employed. And yeah, after their tough times, they came out really well with the iPod, the music device, and then the iPad, and then the iPhone, and now they've been about 20 years plus really in the top 5, top 10 companies of the world pretty consistently, so hugely important for Cork. So they'd be the number 3 largest employer, and then the number 4 largest employer would be involved in agriculture. and Cork's agriculture is very, very strong. It's a big county as well, and about 80% of overall land in Cork is really high quality for dairy farming and for brewers, distillers, crops, etc. There's from the farms, and then actually number 5 would be more a mix of tourism jobs, office jobs, legal professional accountants, etc. On that side of it. So they'd be the 5 sectors. But as you can see, extremely very different, very, very different, very contrasting compared to Kerry, and we're right next to each other. And I mentioned the brown sign there. It said Fitzgerald Stadium that we passed by just about a kilometre ago. Again, another real difference, but that's where we're best of friends as well. Kerry played Gaelic football, which is another one of our Gaelic games. It's played with a round ball like a soccer ball, and it's kind of a mix of Australian rules, so a little bit of rugby / soccer kind of put into it. Tough game, and very skillful as well. But Kerry are the kings of Gaelic football. They've won more All-Ireland titles than any other county. I think about 39 titles they have of All-Ireland football. But then they don't play hurling at all, really. I mean, they play at a very low level. It's all about the Gaelic football for Kerry. And when Kerry are playing, Cork are their biggest supporters, and will always be shouting for Kerry when they're playing in the football, unless they're playing against Cork, of course. So, whereas Cork are the number 2 most successful county in Ireland for hurling, hugely successful in hurling. The only other county with more All-Ireland titles than them are Kilkenny. Cork would have the 2nd most, and then Cork also play football, but really, not as consistent at all. They probably have about 5 All-Ireland titles in Gaelic football. So they can play both, but it's mainly hurling, and there again the differences between Cork and Kerry. And that's why when hurling is on, Kerry will always be shouting for Cork on that front. So it's a big time of the year now actually for us. June and July, a lot of the All-Ireland knockout stages now are happening, and the All-Ireland final then will be on probably around the 3rd week of July for both hurling, and they'll be within a week of each other, hurling and Gaelic football. And this is one of those exceptions, around the 10% of industry jobs. Lever, world famous crane company. You'll find their cranes in nearly every port or harbour in the world. Thousands of jobs here in Killarney with Lever here, so very good employers. Just across the road from them we passed by, there's actually 2 golf courses here on the left hand side, where the stags' heads were, the deers, in their beautiful golf courses. I've been lucky enough to play the right one of them twice, because I'm old enough now to play in seniors competitions, and fabulous course overlooking the mountains and the lakes of Killarney, so real fantastic views, and actually something fairly unique as well. On one of the fairways there's a little path, and wild deer will actually walk across the path, and they don't stop start eating grass or anything like that. They kind of seem to know the place, and they just keep walking. So you take a rest, 20-30 seconds, think about your next shot. Maybe it'll be better than your last shot, but it's nice, it's unique, it's real nature on the golf course essentially. But yeah, beautiful inside there. And this area is called Fossa, Fossa. So we had another bus is just pulled out there now. On the left hand side is the Hotel Europe, a real posh hotel, fantastic, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. 5-star hotel, 5-star service, 5-star food, 5-star rooms. accommodation, 5-star prices.
Right?
So, no, to be honest with you, I was lucky enough. I was at a very recent wedding there, and it is fantastic. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it overlooks the mountains here and the lakes, right out the back, and beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But you know, it's one of those places. It was a wedding for us, so we got it very cost effectively, as they say. But yeah, we were just visitors for the wedding. But yeah, lovely hotel. And this area, Fossa, then would be very popular. There's a little chapel here on the left-hand side, Catholic chapel, and there's a big glass behind the altar inside this chapel here. And again, that looks over the lakes of Clarny and the mountains at the back. And of course, there's photo opportunity in the grass and so forth just outside the church, looking at that view as well. So very popular for weddings there. So coming up on the right actually is one of our, these are very popular now in many countries now really, microbreweries, micro distilleries, and this was recently actually only went up for sale and sold very quickly. So this is, you know, they would do tours, day tours, etc. and so forth in there. And of course look at the view then right out in front of them to our left, and they're the McGillicuddy Reek mountain range, and our highest mountain in Ireland is actually one of the mountains over there, Cronins it's called. And we don't do high mountains in Ireland. 3,400 feet is the highest mountain really, Cronins, and the second and third highest mountains are there too. They're just again about 3,200 feet over there, but beautiful scenery. And of course if you talk to the Irish Tourist Board or Board Fáilte, they're marketing behind the low mountains or the not so high mountains is that the beauty about it, you get to see the whole mountain because it's not gone up into the sky into the clouds, right? But of course it does on rainy days and cloudy days in Ireland, right? But on days like today, beautiful view, you see the whole mountain range. So here on the right hand side actually is one of the industry type jobs. FEXCO, FEXCO, foreign exchange currency operations. And actually this was done by a guy who grew up in Kerry, but then spent most of his business life, 30-40 years in Cork, and actually in fairness came back to Kerry to create this company called FEXCO. And you'll actually see the company in a number of different towns and villages that we'll go through today, because he's created a lot of local employment in what would be considered, low employment areas for folks. So a good man, a real good man, and has created many jobs for the local people of Kerry. And he brought the business here to Cork down to Kerry. And shortly we'll be going through a town called Cronins, and this will be the last town that we'll go through. And when we come up at the other side, it's less than 10 minutes really from the other side of Cronins to our first stop, which will be the Red Fox Inn or Johnny Fox's, the exhibition centre, etc. So from a Cronins standpoint, it's two notable things from about Cronins. One is that they have the longest running festival in Ireland. They have a festival here. It's called the King Puck Festival, and it's been running actually since the 1600s. And around August 10th every year, and it has varied now in many years as to how long the festival is, from 3 days and 3 nights to 5 days and 5 nights to 10 days and 10 nights. It's gone up and down in terms of duration, but thousands of people come here, all from people that used to live in this area, different towns around this area, etc. And they know some people have only moved to other parts of Ireland, some people have moved to UK, Europe, Australia, England, etc., America, Canada. But they come back here, then they know they have a very good chance of meeting their relatives / old friends, etc. And the funny thing about this whole festival is the MC, the most important person, is a goat. And I give you the goat here on the left hand side. That is Mr. King Puck, right? So you can always take a photograph in case nobody believes you, but it's true. Yeah. Master of Ceremonies is the goat. And there is reasons behind that. There's folklore and so forth behind it. But what happens when the festival is on, they erect a stage here, and we'll hopefully drive past the area, but the stage won't be. They don't put that up to a few days before August 10th. I'll point out to you what goes on. But the stage goes about 150 feet into the air, and the goat goes up there with a crown on them, and they're actually the main person is the goat for the whole festival. So, but it has changed now in terms of the committee have met with, say, animal welfare, for instance, because at one stage, this festival was going on for over 7 days and 7 nights, and it wasn't very fair to the goat. So now the goat only goes up for 3 hours on the first opening day and 3 hours on closing night. But just on this it's a triangle really rather than a square. That's where the stage gets up and the goat is above there. And all this place will be thronged with thousands of people singing, dancing, drinking, enjoying themselves. And we have our Garda Síochána right next to them, so everything goes off very, very well. And it's a real happy time for the people of Cronins and people that used to live in this area. So I'll tell you a little bit more in a minute. So where the origin of the King Puck comes. We can point out one or two other things along the way. So on the right hand side is a wooden sculpture here of the lady with her suitcases and stuff. Of course, that was a common sight, and there's a big emigration area here, and all parts of west of Ireland, etc. Very big emigration area, so that's a tribute to that. Flexco on that building on the right hand side again, that's actually their headquarters where they would have started down here when they moved to Kerry. We'll see more of them afterwards, as mentioned. But the reason for the goat is that there's another village not far from here, about 3 kilometres away, And in the 1600s, there was a guy called Oliver Cromwell from England, and he was an absolute brilliant warrior, really, leader of soldiers, etc. And he did great work for the English, and from an Irish standpoint, he was a pain, and a real big pain for us, because the Irish found it very, very hard to defeat him. And so Cromwell was in that village just out the road here, and at that time, the 1600s, sure, like all the animals, the pigs, the goats, the lambs, etc., they'd be walking the streets, right? Essentially, right? And so Cromwell had come with a big army of soldiers and was ransacking the town, taking over the town, etc. And the goat got, as someone was being killed, the goat got a splashings of blood onto it, and so they sent the goat off to Killarglen to warn the people that Cromwell was only a few kilometres away, so that they could get ready for battle, or to hide, or etc., and be aware that Cromwell was on the way. And the goat made it anyway, seemingly to. And when he arrived, he had a limp, they say, but that's all folklore, of course. But that's why the goat is so special to Killarglen, and is the king puck, essentially. And it's a different goat every year that they capture. And like I said, now it's only a couple of hours that they spend up on the stage, and then the younger girls, the 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, etc., can take a walk with the goat, and the relatives and friends will be taking photographs of them and so forth. So that's King Puck and Killarglen. So less than 10 minutes, folks, will be at the first stop. So on the way out here, as you look possibly to the right sometimes, you may see some of what they call the bog fields. And these would be peat. And talking about the early 2000s, nearly every fireplace, every house in Ireland would have been burning what they call turf or peat logs. And they would be taken out of the bogland here, and that's why you may see in one or two places on the right hand side little stacks of small logs, and they would be put in the fire. There'd be a smell of peat and so forth in the fire, which would be a nice smell to many, and that's what they used to heat their homes with mainly. But since the early 2000s now, it's been barred and banned, etc., and it's no longer allowed to be on fire in places. The only people now, if they own bogland, they can do it for their own personal fires, etc. But other than that, it can't be sold, or no commercial value with it on the turf. There's a bog field there, but I don't see the stacks at the moment. But they're the type of fields, and much of Kerry is bogland. And we'll learn plenty more about this later on in the day, because the roads are going to gradually Some people like to say disimprove. Some people like to say become more authentic, Irish roads. But they will become bumpier, narrower, etc. And that's the impact of the bogland of Kerry. It's part of the beauty of it, but it's also part of the things that are a bit different about Kerry, and very much a part of why the population in Kerry is not very high for a large county. So just give some brief information about Red Fox Inn, Johnny Fox's. The guy's name is Johnny Mulville, very nice fella. He's been active in Irish tourism for a long time. In fact, there's an animal called the Kerry pony, which is especially like a bog pony, specifically because it's much smaller in height and then a bit fatter, and it's got thicker legs, very much created for bogland, essentially, much more workable and so forth, a workhorse that can get through the bogs, etc., than your regular horses with their thinner legs, and they'd be much higher horses. So they're adult horses, even though they're called Kerry ponies. So he's responsible for saving them. They were nearly extinct. He's on a committee that did that. He created this whole exhibition centre himself, and and people working for him. And it really gives examples of white cottages and how people lived in the 1800s, especially. And a lot of it is examples of more poorer people. But then there's different types. So one thing you'll notice, people may have heard the expression daylight robbery and wonder where daylight robbery came from. Well, it came from here, from where there's a lot of cottages being built, and there was actually a tax on windows at the time. The English would have a tax on windows. So if you had a large window, you paid a much bigger tax. And hence you can see in some of those cottages really small windows or just one window. It also is responsible for the half door. We would sometimes see a horse's head hang out a half door, and obviously let some sunlight in. And of course in the winter that wasn't very good for keeping the place warm. So look, it's got Irish wolfhounds in there, lambs, etc. The Kerry ponies. You see some here to the right. See, they're smaller, wider, and the villages. There's villages in there. But that's entirely up to yourself, folks. It's €7 or €8 in. You get a discount off the Irish coffee. There are restrooms there, and there's restrooms on the other side as well. Yeah, so entirely up to yourself. Some people have come out and they've really been interested in it, and some people are less interested. So I'll leave that to yourselves. And I'll just be parking here. I'll get up in front of you now. We'll check the times, okay? So if you just...
There. What to check the tapes. What is it? Poetry boom. I'll just stick my head in. If I can propose. Try to box the camera with me. I can charge it. So.
Oh god.
Not enough of the USB.
Oh, the power bank.
Yeah, so
Oh,
I'll have it.
at least you have it.
I know, I went down when I got like, no! It's not good mic. I don't know if I can catch my microphone wasn't great the last time, so
Yeah, okay.
it might be alright. They might hear me talking. I used to come in anyway. It's a nice day for it as well. Like, I just can see I'm on the Ring and Kerry tour at the moment with the bus.
Oh, fab.
Not Paddywagon, some other company.
Yeah,
it's grand actually. It's actually good.
It's a nice tour,
Yeah. Must go around again. See you later. Bye. I don't know if you can hear me or not. But this is the drilling house, I think. Let's see what's in here. I think bottom last here a bit, like, you know. Like, no bikes bed in here. Drilling, the down drillings. What are they called? The Lord's wedding, I think. I can't pronounce that. You got old shed down there. I'm not going to go much into these things because in case there's people in there and I don't want to be. This is the stable, I think. I'm going to go in just to peep in. I don't know what's in there, so. Handy. It's cool though. So this is all we're getting. Oh, yeah. It comes to clearing on the video actually, which is weird. It's true though. Sorry. Okay, I think that's it. I'm not taking more videos of it now when I'm done now.
Okay, so this is a lovely town called Glen Bay. Plenty of residents here during the year, but at the same time, again in about 2 weeks' time, when the young kids are finished school, the population will probably treble in this village, because on the four corners of the village there's caravan parks or mobile home parks, right? And of course everybody comes down then with their kids for the summer, and during those 8 weeks then it's there's nice crowds down here on the street, eating outdoors, drinking outdoors, etc. And there's a number of different restaurants and pubs, and good choice really here in Glen Bay. And the beauty about it, why it is that everybody can walk home then, to the different caravan parks. Short walk through the town to get home. And then there's some really good beaches in this area, which of course is easier then to get to during the daytime for beach activities and sea activities and so forth. So very popular. There's one of the beaches here is a bit more famous than the others, Ross Bay Strand, and that's because you may have noticed there were one or two posters. There's another one down here on the left, but you can actually rent one. This Ross Bay beach is so large that you can rent a horse and go horse riding on the beach, right? So it's a nice little unique feature, kind of like that, on Ross Bay Beach. And hopefully when we stop for our photo shoot in about 15 minutes,
Yeah.
we might get a picture. So there's the horses there, and you can book them and ride them on the beach. Back behind me there's a huge caravan park. This is a smaller one, but this is one of the examples now that will be full at the end of June, for July and August. So that's Glen Bay. was mentioned earlier, St. Patrick, our patron saint, male patron saint of Ireland. And now we have a female patron saint as well, which is great. And her name is St. Bridget. And St. Bridget spent a lot of time in Dublin and Kildare area, financing and building churches, convents, etc., education centres. And so she used to always be looking for land from the King of Leinster. But she had relations down this area, including an uncle, quite a very popular uncle was down here. So she used to spend quite a bit of time in this area, Bridget. And news of her sort of special powers had started getting around the place. And there was a twins born down here, and they were 3 years old, and they couldn't talk or hear. They were deaf and dumb. And somebody had faith, and they called St. Bridget, when she blessed the children. She came down and she blessed the children in one of the streams here. And look, sure enough, the children were then able to talk and hear. And it was very good. But you have to have 2 miracles, they say, right? Miracle type acts to become a saint. So the other one that the Irish like to sort of say is really what got her to sainthood, is quite similar to the story of Jesus and Mary at the wedding, and they ran out of wine. So Holy Mary asked Jesus to change the water into wine at the wedding, and which of course he did. He obliged for his mother. So a similar story of St. Bridget down here is that her uncle, who was a very, very popular man down this direction, had died, and she came down to the funeral and the wake, as they call it in Ireland, the day before the funeral, and where you remember someone's life and you celebrate it, and you tell stories about the person and so on and so forth. So of course there was a huge crowd there, and as you do, they ran out of beer. There were so many people there, right? The barrels all went empty. So of course somebody looked at St. Bridget seemingly and said, "Come here, please help us out here." And of course she went one better than Jesus and Mary, and she changed all the empty barrels into full barrels of beer again, right? So they all had a great night then, and they were all able to celebrate the uncle's life further and tell more stories, and the night went on very, very late, as they say. So that's the one the Irish like to kind of remember, that's why she got a sainthood, of course. But also here, and you'll begin to see a view now if you look off to the right hand side here, you'll begin to see some of Dingle Bay and the Dingle Peninsula across the water. So a really nice day, really clear. But there's a local down here, and a lot of these, there's something called the St. Bridget's Cross. And the St. Bridget's Cross, if you hang it up inside your doorway or anywhere in your entrance hall, it's supposed to keep the people in the house safe and bring you some good luck or good karma, essentially. But sometimes, not all the time, there's an older local guy here that makes them, and sometimes he's down here and he'd be selling them. They're very reasonable. I think they're about €5, I'd say, for them. But again, some people might be interested in that. It's a very light present if you're travelling to bring home with you. And so hopefully you got a few nice photographs there. It's a beautiful day for it. on that. So it's the Dingle Peninsula, and you might see a bit of construction going on here, so forth. About 12 months ago, there was permission granted to make a new greenway here, and they're probably called maybe something slightly different in different countries, but in Ireland, our greenways are things that are being developed for pedestrians walking, cycling, hiking, etc. And typically some of them come with very good views. So if you look here to the left hand side, this is an old railway line. So you'll see a number of tunnels here going through the mountains, and they're actually going to build the greenway along that railway line. Essentially that'll be the direction of it, and it'll be the main platform for it, and so forth. And then you can go cycling, walking, running, etc. on there. So you see there's nearly a tunnel in every mountain that's going through there. But it'll be this one will be really nice because number one is you have a fabulous view looking across there to Dingle Peninsula. But number two then is that down here a little bit further, shortly we'll see a railway viaduct, and a railway viaduct bridge going across part of the road here. And from there you'll actually get a double view. You'll get a view of the Dingle Peninsula looking out this way, and when you look inward towards the left, you'll get a view of the mountain range and the inside the country and the agriculture and so forth. So like a double view. So it normally takes them, this is 12 months ago they started here. It normally takes, somewhere around the 3 to 5 years to complete. So I'm sure this will be a very popular one when it opens. So a number of the islands are out there a little bit further there now, Blaskets and so forth. It's like on the right hand side. You might notice that there's a lot of pride in gardens around here. They're all very, very well done up and lovely flowers and so forth. And be passing by a place that has done very well as regards flowers and plants and exhibitions. I'll point out to you in 5 or 10 minutes time. Just around the corner here now is the viaduct. It needs a paint job and full reconstruction and so forth, but see there you get the double view looking in as well as looking out. coming up here, if you look to the right and look downwards, you'll hopefully see a place called Kells Bay. There's a little beach down there, there's a little pier down there. But there's also Kells Bay House and Gardens is a place down there. You need a lot of time to go view it, right? But Kells Bay House and Garden, people may have heard of the Chelsea Flower Show in London. Well, they have won 2 separate gold medals on 2 different years at the Chelsea Flower Show in London, which is one of the most prestigious flower shows in the world. But that's Kells Bay House and Gardens would be down there. But you'd want a half day to walk around it. Now, as mentioned, we've been on relatively good roads considered the Irish standards, but it will gradually now become a little bit more challenging, a bit bumpier, but it's more gradual, and then I'll give you a fair enough warning when it's due to get very bumpy. That's later on. So the next town we'll be going through will be a fairly large town, Cahersiveen, and there's a few important people associated with Cahersiveen, and one of them would be a guy called Daniel O'Connell, who's a very important guy in our history. And I guess Daniel O'Connell is real important for more than one reason, and he was very good to the Roman Catholic Church and to Irish Catholics at the time, but he was also a person, of all our patriots, he didn't believe in battle or violence, etc. So he was a man of peace, a man of negotiations, encouragement, talking, and believed in getting things done that way and achieved that way. He was kind of this, we're talking about the time period now is late 1700s and early 1800s. And at the time, the Irish Catholics were being persecuted essentially. And they had no rights whatsoever. They couldn't go to Mass. They couldn't read religious books. They couldn't practice their religion. They couldn't vote, and they couldn't be educated. So it was a real tough time for Irish Catholics. And Daniel O'Connell took it upon himself to try and change all this and do it by peaceful means. And he's one of the ones that was lucky enough to have a richer uncle. And in those days, the only way, if you were Irish Catholic, to get educated was if you had a rich relative that could send you to France and you'd be educated in France and then come back, etc. So that's what Daniel O'Connell did. His uncle helped him get educated in France, and he came back and he studied the legal profession and so forth over there. So he became a very good speaker, Daniel O'Connell. And this is how he got such a huge following. They used to call them monster meetings, because he was achieving, crowds of 50,000, once or twice over 100,000 at a time, late 1700s, early 1800s, when there's no such thing as vehicles or proper transport. But people used to go for miles and miles and miles to hear him talk at these monster meetings. So this is where he was. These are the ruins now. This is where he was born, just outside Cahersiveen. Of course, it's all ruins now. But the uncle more or less adopted him at a young age. So he took part in. He grew up, I should say, then in places called Derrynan. Sorry, folks, just a little bit. Derrynan and Caherdaniel. So all down this area for the next 40-50 kilometres, etc., would be known as Daniel O'Connell country. He used to be hanging out here. This is where his main homestead was, essentially. But he achieved what was called Catholic emancipation through all his negotiations and talking and no violence, all peace and influence is what he used. And he achieved back nearly all the rights for the Irish Catholics. So he's very popular with Irish Catholics. They called it Catholic emancipation in 1829, and that's when they got back their religion, their votes, their ability to go to Mass, build churches, etc. So he is one of the only lay people. He's not a saint. He's just a lay person. There's a few in the world now, churches named after lay people, but not many across the world, Roman Catholic churches. So in the middle of the village here is the Daniel O'Connell Memorial Church, because the Catholic Church was so happy about what he had done for them here in Ireland that they built this church in his honour. And it's really nice architecture, really unusual. So that's Daniel O'Connell, and that's why Daniel O'Connell is on our main street, O'Connell Street. It's called O'Connell Street after Daniel O'Connell in Limerick. O'Connell Street is the main street. Many other towns and smaller cities would have their main street, O'Connell Street. And if they don't have an O'Connell Street main street, they have another street called O'Connell Street in the town itself. So that's Daniel O'Connell. And the second person, real important person, was more recent, World War II. Essentially, again, we go to Hitler and the Nazis, etc., and Holocaust and killing people and so forth. And so this is Monsignor Hugh O'Flaherty. And there's actually a film out. It's called The Scarlet and the Black, I believe is the name of the film. He was known as the Scarlet Pimpernel of the Vatican. But we talked about Mary Elm saving over 200 children. Well, he had a huge network inside the Vatican. He was born in Cork, actually, moved down here at a very young age, and then he went to Rome, few promotions, and he set up a big network that was saving people from, going to the Holocaust, etc. So he saved over 6,000 people from certain death, really, essentially. So this is the church, Daniel O'Connell Memorial Church. One of a few churches named after a layperson and not Jesus or Holy Mary or one of the saints. And to the left of it then is a portrait on the gable of the house of Monsignor O'Flaherty that I was just talking about. So the Scarlet Pimpernel of the Vatican. And he's buried inside the grounds here of the Memorial Church. We just made it there, I think. We're going to do a little bit of a march. So that's Daniel O'Connell and then Monsignor O'Flaherty at the side of the house. So this is Cahersiveen, a very long main street. You may notice a lot of the businesses and frontages are painted different colours. And this route is, it's an official tourist route. The Ring of Kerry, very, very popular, of course, with tourists. So some of these now will have gotten grants or a subsidy to paint their fronts different colours and to keep it all bright and so forth. The different businesses, different shops, etc. And even now we're down to houses in this area. So they're mainly different colours as well, a lot of these. But of course, there's a different story behind that. And whether it's 50% true or not is another thing. But it is said why they're different colours is because after a long day's work, in years gone by, it doesn't happen now anymore, but the men would go drinking in the village, and the main pubs would be at the centre of the village, and they'd be walking home after one drink, two drinks, too many drinks, and they'd be too drunk to remember the number of their house, but they could remember the colour of their house. So, is that did it ever happen? Was it 20% true? I don't know, but wouldn't happen today, as they say. So Cahersiveen. Now, what a beautiful day today that you're having in terms of the weather wise. But of course, one of the reasons why Ireland is considered very beautiful and green, etc., many other colours, is because we do have something called rain as well. And this uninteresting building in front of us to the right is one of our main regional weather centres that records rain, etc., forecasts and so forth. Well, at the start of this year, 3 days before New Year's Eve, it started raining, and it didn't stop for 63 days, right? Rained somewhere in this area, right? For 63 days in a row. So, there's little prices to be paid, as they say, for some of the beauty. But today, it's a smasher. Beauty. Skellig Distillery, micro distillery here. Good name for it. Skellig Michael Island, etc. Skellig Islands. Here's another example. Fexco, the company I mentioned, about the Kerry guy who came back to Kerry from Cork and set up all these jobs. Now there's no cars in there or anything today because it's Sunday, so they're off. And off to the right hand side there, there's a beautiful island called Valencia Island down there to the right, and it's only separated by the mainland by about 200 yards of a bridge, or you can get a little car ferry across to it and you're there in 5 minutes essentially. But it's beautiful in terms of it's not a big island, so it's easy to kind of cover the whole island, and brilliant for cycling, for instance, cycling and hiking. And of course, as you go around the island, you just get, 360-degree views of different perspectives. So really beautiful, Valencia Island, just over there to the right. And Valencia itself, then, is a few things of note. Valencia Island is famous for Valencia slates, for roofs and so forth, and buildings, and for high quality construction materials, also from Valencia construction. And they've been a lot of Irish homes and so forth, the slates, but also then some notable buildings in England and Europe. The Westminster building has Valencia high quality construction materials in it, and so too does the Opera House in Paris have it. So it's very popular from that standpoint. And then they've been a leader in, I suppose a lot of people talk about artificial intelligence now, all the computer advances and so on and so forth. But back in the 1860s, the only way to get a message sent to anybody, or a newspaper, or a fruit, or goods, was via ships. And say you were coming across the Atlantic, it would be somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks for that ship to deliver, even if it was a small message. Well, they had a major project here in the 1860s. The people of the island of Valencia and the people of Canada, of Newfoundland. In fact, the Newfoundland Prime Minister is here at the moment, and they made reference to it. And they laid a cable from Valencia Island across the Atlantic to Newfoundland, and they did a number of tests, and of course the initial test failed. But when they got the first official test to be successful, they were able to send a message across the Atlantic in less than 2 minutes. So that was coming down from 2 to 3 weeks, essentially. So a huge step forward in telecommunications, really, and technology. And we were under English reign at the time. Queen Victoria was in reigning, and she was absolutely thrilled and sent over quite a bit of money, etc., so that people could celebrate properly of the achievement. So that's another interesting thing about Valencia Island. And about 15 years ago, they also discovered one of the oldest fossils in the world, millions and millions of years old, believed to be a sea creature coming up on land, and I guess evolutionary becoming a land creature. But they were able to date it back millions of years. So we're heading towards Waterville now, which would be, in about maybe 15 minutes or so. And that'll be a quick enough stop, 10-15 minutes. But it's a restroom stop, stretch your legs. It's right at the seafront, so you will get a real strong sense of sea and salt air, as you walk along a little path in front of the water in Waterville. And it's known for other things as well, and one of them is particularly certain statues. So I'll come back to you in about 10 minutes and we'll tell you a little bit about the statues before we get to Waterville. So enjoy the views. someone passing me here.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm not sure whether we have any golfing fans on the tour with us today. But, Waterville is a very well-known golf course. It's a famous golf course. It's the Waterville Golf Links course here, and it's well known to American professional golfers, would typically come here to Waterville about 2 weeks before the British Open, which would be one of the major tournaments in the calendar for golf. And they would practice here in the Waterville Golf Links because it's a links course which is very similar to some of the links courses that they play the British Open in over in England. So they come here, relax, and get a feel for the golf. But there was a guy years ago called Payne Stewart, really good golfer, really successful golfer, and a really flashy dresser. This guy used to dress in really bright colours, before anybody else did. You know, back in those days, back in the 1990s, you know, it was boring colours really that the golfers wore, and he kind of led the whole fashion side of it, as well as being a very good golfer. But he came here anyway with the, you know, and a few of the Americans would have come as well. There's a few nice little stories and anecdotes about him. And the first time he was here anyway, seemingly, there's a shop in Waterville, I think it was Norma Foley's at the time, and he went into the shop and he said to Norma, he says, can I have 3 ice creams please? And she says, oh, of course you can, of course you can. She said, like, we'll leave them alone a while, we'll wait till the ice creams are ready. So she had a machine, and of course she's putting in the whipped ice cream into the cones, and she has the 3 ready, and he says, I better call the lads. So he called in the lads anyway, and in walks Mark O'Mara, another professional, and Tiger Woods, right? Well, that's the Waterville Golf Links off here to our right, just outside Waterville. But anyway, when the 2 boys walked in, did Norma drop one of the ice creams? She got such a fright. Seemingly they had the best laugh. They took loads of photographs, embarrassing people and so forth. They were slagging Tiger Woods, saying that it was his ice cream and he wasn't getting another one, and so on. And so they had great fun anyway with him. But he was a character, Payne Stewart. He used to play the mouth organ, and he used to sing quite a lot. And there's a pub, a hotel here, and he used to go in there, and he used to be the Butler Arms. And so that he'd be entertaining them all, you know, singing the songs, playing the mouth organ, etc. Then the locals would ask him, come here, can I take a picture of you pouring a pint for me? And he'd get behind the bar and he'd be pouring a pint for them, and so forth. So he became a real local himself. So much so, he's back here a few years, that they were building an extension to the Waterville Golf Links, and they wanted him to open the Waterville Golf Links. And he said, of course, I'll be back next year and I'll open it for you. Unfortunately, about 6 months later, he was in a kind of like a private jet plane class. There was very few on the plane anyway, only maybe 6 people. I think it was going from Florida to Dallas, and yeah, they ran out of compression or something on the plane, very unusual. And so unfortunately he died, and so he never got to open it. But what the Waterville people did was that they made a statue in his honour. Now, they didn't know this, but his wife came over, and some of the American golfers again, and they opened it instead in his honour. So there's a statue of Payne Stewart, I should say, in the Waterville Golf Links. And then also in the middle here, where I'm going to point you up to in a minute, Charlie Chaplin. Again, I'm showing my age. He's a real early Hollywood star. You know, really acted in the initial movies when there was no sound, etc., and became one of the most richest people in the world. Well, he came down here to Waterville for 10 years in a row on his holidays, and actually the last couple of years, every time he came, there was a bigger family coming with him, because he married multiple times towards the end, and he'd bring them all down, and they'd have great crack. And in fact, they've named the restaurant after him, Charlie's, here after Charlie Chaplin. And the only reason he stopped is because he was warned by the Secret Service in 1969, when the troubles were getting bad in Belfast and Northern Ireland, that he could be a kidnapping target, because at this stage he was one of the richest people in the world. So him or one of his party could have been kidnapped, and they advised him not to come. So he didn't. And there's Charlie's restaurant here. So I'm going to pull into this car park, right? Because there's a restroom in the building off to our right hand side here, the small building there, along the side of it, at the front.
is just make sure it's recording, peeps. Because I didn't see the recording things in my camera. It's broken. Thought it'd be nice to take a video of this from walking back to the bus. It's driving open inside, so it'd be a nice idea to film it. Let's get blue, just a bit blue. What I'll do, I'll complain. Sometimes I haven't been to Wallable in a long time. So probably 14 tour buses. I really do that's unfortunately. I think that's what it is. Again.
Hi.
I'm still recording. It's a good camera.
Yeah, that's good.
It needs to take USB.
Oh yeah.
So it won't go dead, but the only thing is my screen is kind of gone half.
Ah.
But I can still record. It's
Yeah,
fine.
you can still make that.
I haven't been here for a while now. It's a long time since I've been down here.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get down here by public transport.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, they're on the bus with me as well. Apparently we're all on this tour bus from Cork. So we're down in Waterville as well. We're going, I think Sneem is on the way up as well. I think Kerry at 7 and that's it. Done. I don't even go to the toilet, being a while ago, and I don't know what it is. Sometimes I don't fancy going to the toilet. So, yeah. What do we? Not over there, are we? Oh, he's over across the road. Oh, never mind. Anyway, let's go to Charlie and say hi to me. I will leave you guys the next clip. See Charlie's. Very nice. Charlie. He's when do you eat that land? I will post it actually in the post it. I forgot there's another person up here, one who he is. Oh, someone will get a football in their hand.
Got some fresh sea air there, and typically there's Charlie Chaplin there, but when you walk along the front path there, you typically know you're alive anyway, that's for sure, from the sea air. So, very short spin before our next stop. We go up to the top of the mountains here, to a place called Kumakista. Yes, very Kumakista, very good. And yeah, it'll be another photo opportunity, but I mean today is just beautiful and clear, so you actually get a double view up there. So hopefully there'll be no cloud coming on top of the mountain all of a sudden. That's going to be quick, but yeah, we'll be there in about 10 minutes, all right? And then after that, probably about 45 minutes drive to our lunch spot in Sneem.
Thank you.
And we're normally there for about 2. All good?
Yes.
Okay. folks, when we get about another kilometre or two up the hill here, up the mountain, if you look where the land ends on the right hand side, right, where the water's in the middle, if you look at it from the cause it's a nice clear day, you will most likely get a view of Skellig Michael there, but you'll have to look back a bit to the right hand side where it goes around the corner. So in about another kilometre or so, you'll probably be able to see it, I would imagine. But I need to keep looking forward. Yeah, that's Skellig Michael there now, the UNESCO site and the Star Wars movie. I'll just slow down there, very temporarily, if anybody wants to try and get a quick snap. It will probably be small depending on your camera. Okay, folks. So shortly we'll be at Coomacista, double view, it's a car park, and you can see backwards to Waterville where we came from on one side of the car park, and on the other side of the car park is the new view, which is of Daniel and Derrynan and everywhere where Daniel Connell grew up, and there's fabulous beaches there and so forth, and we'll be going down that side. So at the edge of the peninsula here now, and we'll start to be going back in the other way now shortly. But you'll see there's very good views. And again, this is here. Guys, we do try and make this, 5-7 minutes kind of thing. So it's 13:08 now. Which will be probably, so if we can by 13:15. So 1:15. And if you do notice a big coach about to leave or come along, it's good to get in front of them, or they slow us down then to name for your lunch when everybody's hungry. But we'll see. So the good news is that we'll very soon be in Sneem, 2-3 minutes, for lunch stop. This is the main lunch stop. And I'll try and give you a bit of location bearing and a little bit of guidance on maybe where might be good to eat and the different things available. And we'll give you a little bit of geography first. So it's kind of split into two. There's a green area on this side where we're coming in from now. On this side there's a green area. And then there's a little bridge in the middle with water flowing underneath it, or a little river. And on the other side there's a green area as well. But most of the food places are here on this side. Okay. So we'll see. It's always a challenge to find where to park, but we'll see what it looks like. And I'll try and give you a little bit of guidance then. can. We can often be very packed here. Okay. So you may have noticed lots of trees, especially to the left at the moment, but there are plenty of trees left and right. And these are actually forest plantations. And Ireland has had a long and a very varied history with woods and forest. And in fact, in the early centuries, it was believed that Ireland was covered by 80–90% coverage of trees over Ireland. And there was even a quotation going, if you were a squirrel in Ireland, you could hop from tree to tree, the length and breadth of the country and back again, and never have to touch the ground as a squirrel. There was that many trees in Ireland. But of course then, early centuries passed by, agriculture happened, farming, the Industrial Revolution, shipbuilding, furniture, construction, you know, multiple uses for wood, and lots of trees being cut down all over the place. So much so that at one stage it was gotten to as low as estimated to be 3% to 6% coverage only of trees. So the government, in fairness, you know, made a very good call on this one, and they started to look at different things, and the environment was coming up, and trees and carbon footprint and all that goes with it. And so they put together a program for mainly West of Ireland farmers, because in the West of Ireland, like here now in Kerry, as mentioned, the land is not very good in many places. So it's bogland, etc., so forth. And the trees seemingly are fairly versatile as regards where they can grow, which is very similar for sheep. So that's why there's so many forests and sheep in Kerry and the West of Ireland in general, up Clare, Mayo, Donegal, etc. All the West, all beautiful, all in the West. And it was open as well to people that didn't have great land in, you know, eastern parts or mid parts of Ireland as well. But what they did was, if you said to give 100 acres to grow trees, well then you got a sign-on fee equivalent to 100 acres value. If you did 300 acres, you got 3 times that sign-up fee. And very similarly then, as a rental, an annual rental, you know, it's the same thing. If you did 100 acres, you got a certain rental fee. If you did 300 acres, you know, you got 3 times that rental fee. And also, depending on the contract you got, it was kind of 5, 10, 15-year contracts, that you could cut down some trees and sell them a certain percentage for commercial value. And your only agreement was that you had to agree to replant the same acreage with trees, etc. And then you'd be still part of the program. So it's running probably 30 to 40 years now, and starting up between 3 and 6%. So just say 5%, put it in the middle somewhere. The latest figures came out about 4 or 5 months ago, and I believe it was about 14%. So, you know, they've nearly trebled in that time period, and trees take a while to grow. So the farmers and the government all see that as being you know, good to very good progress, really, and they're going to be continuing with the program because it's helping the environment as well. So it's kind of a treble win for the farmers with land that was of no value to them, and now they're getting money for it. Win for the government, you know, because the farmers are happy, and also the environment, good for the public and everybody, which is good for the government. So that's a bit of Ireland's history with forest and forest plantations and woods and so forth. And just sticking in the agriculture kind of side of it, yeah, certainly I'm sure you're seeing plenty of sheep around the place. You'll see some cows as well, but plenty of sheep. And that's what Kerry is like. And in Ireland in general, we have more sheep than people. We actually have over 6 million sheep, and we have 5.4 million people. So, but we're still in the small leagues compared to other countries for instance, Scotland, a smaller country, has 7.5 million sheep. And then the country that really wins the prize very easily is New Zealand. They have about 27.5 million sheep in New Zealand. So, hence all the jokes about Wellingtons and so on. So, yeah, a lot of sheep in New Zealand. So they win by a long shot. And then looking at differences again between Cork and Kerry, it even comes down to cows being different. So in Cork we have a cow, the brand of the cow is called Holstein Friesian, and they seemingly originate from northern Germany and the Netherlands area, but now they're practically native at this stage now in Ireland. They've been here so long. And they're really, really good for dairy. They're a really good dairy cow. Very good results for them. And but Kerry, of course, there has to be a difference. So Kerry actually have their own breed of cow, right? And it's called, kind of like the straight road this morning, it's called the Kerry cow, right? That's what it is. It's their breed of cow. And again, it's a pretty good breed of cow in terms of when you put the scores, you know, for lactation, for calving, for milk production, etc. When you put them against the Holstein Friesian, you know, they're kind of, when they're compared, they get about, you know, 8.5 to 9 marks in comparison with the Holstein Friesian from Cork Dairy. So, you know, but again, a difference between two neighbouring counties, even in our cows. A nice view to our left here when I go around this corner, or as I go around the corner. And down there is known where it's the lower part of the mountains is known as the Gap of Dunlow. And when we were on the other side of the mountains this morning, there were signs pointing to the Gap of Dunlow. It takes you through the highest mountains in the Cronins, and it's very popular for people. There's multiple methods that you can do to come across the Gap of Dunlow. People hike it, walk it, run it, kayak it, cycle it, pony and trap for some of it. So yeah, so it's the Gap of Dunlow, which kind of ends around here, and this place here is actually called Moll's Gap. And the reason it's called Moll's Gap is because it took them a long time to make this road. This is about the halfway between Killarney, going this direction, and Kenmare if I turned the other direction. And when they were building this road, they were building it from Kenmare towards Killarney, and also from Killarney towards Kenmare. It took a long time to build it. And one of the ladies' names that used to go up and down with a trolley every day with refreshments and food for the workers, her name was Molly Cassan. And Molly Cassan was for years doing this, and she'd show up, when she wasn't even fit to work. She'd just make sure that the men were all, and the workers were all getting looked after, because it was very heavy work. And so she never missed a day. And unfortunately though, one day when they were about 90% through coming from both sides, she unfortunately just died of a suspected heart attack at the time. And she died up in that area, and just in her honour then, her name was Molly. And then of course we had the Gap of Dunlow meeting there at that point. So now it's called Moll's Gap, essentially. So there's the little river going through the Gap of Dunlow and so forth. Just down there to the left. So that's the story of Molly Cassan. So you might see a few people over there, a good few people. That's a sheepdog exhibition and training centre that they have over there. I haven't been at that particular one. I've been up a different one in Mayo, in the west of Ireland. And I never thought I'd get excited looking at sheep getting herded, but it was very exciting and it was very impressive. The farmer, didn't do any talking to the sheep or to the sheepdog. It was all whistles and sounds, and the sheep, there was about 60 sheep across 3 different mountains, really high mountains, and the sheepdog had them all down within 5 minutes. It was so it's quite impressive. here we are. There's some sheep on the road, 2 lambs. They're having their first training session. So we're coming in from the south side of the Killarney National Park. 28,000 hectares of land in the National Park. So we're on the opposite side of it now to what we were this morning. So we'll pull in here and you'll have a photograph opportunity for the lakes of Killarney.
Kerry.
Sorry, you want to talk?
Oh, sorry. Not a fan.
Se me ha dormido, mamá. ¿Aún no se ha dado eso? ¿Y quién ha ganado? Sí, ese es como decía.
So these 3 lookout areas are called Ladies' View. And Ladies' View get their name from the time that Queen Victoria visited Ireland and these three spots were her favourite places in Killarney. She used to love to come up here to see the views with her ladies in waiting, and hence it's called Ladies' View. But in fairness, we were under English reign at the time, but Queen Victoria was really responsible for putting Killarney on the tourist map, because as you can imagine, in those days, and it still is the case in some places, that if the Queen decided to go somewhere and visit somewhere, well, you know, lots of other people had to see, why did the Queen go there? What was so special about that spot, etc. So, in fairness, it really put Killarney on the map, and Killarney has been a major hub of tourism for Ireland for, you know, that was the 1860s. So, you know, we're talking close to 200 years now, getting there. So yeah, that was. But of course, there's always a backstory to all stories, and that was when the Queen visited, and she definitely put us on the map. But her official visit was to a place down the bottom of the hill here, on the Muckross Road, and it's called Muckross House. And it's a big Victorian mansion. It's open to the public now, and you know, people that you pay, you know, probably 8 or 10 euros to get in, etc. But you need a few hours to go around the house alone and the gardens, and then of course it's right in the middle of the national park as well. So it takes up probably about, you know, less than 20% of the national park, Muckross House, but it's a mansion. Of course, there's always a story. So when the Queen was looking around deciding where she was going, there was a family here called the Herbert family, and there was already 4 generations of them living in the Muckross House, right? And each one put their own stamp on it, maybe knocked bits down, put up a different style house, etc. So Henry Herbert and his wife, his new wife Mary Balfour, were the latest to move in, and they put their stamp on it with the Victorian mansion. And one day a letter came in, and it was, you know, marked from the Queen's staff, and it was informing them that the Queen had mentioned she would love to be invited to stay in Muckross House. So of course Henry Herbert and Mary Balfour said, "Oh my God, this is fantastic. We're going to be made for life. We're going to have loads of money. She's going to give us a big reimbursement. You know, we're going to get knighthood, blah 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 blah." And anyway, the problem with it is, right, is that the letter arrived, it gave them 5 years notice, right? So of course, what did Henry do? Henry Herbert, he started traveling the world, right? And he started picking up and buying, right, the most expensive art you could buy, the best silverware, the best jewels, you know, Persian rugs, anything expensive, classy, he was buying them by the new time. And he spent, anyway, loads and loads of money. He spent too much money, so much so that he was actually already in small financial difficulties before the Queen came. Queen came, she stayed 2 nights, off she went, and there was Henry left with huge bills and people chasing him for money. Make a long story short, he had to sell the house. So, him being the 4th generation, it was, you know, fairly sad occasion really, having to sell the house in order to pay back debts, etc. So he sold the house, and who bought it but a guy called Lord Ardelon of the Guinness family, right? So of course he had loads and loads of money, didn't bother him. He bought it anyway and used it as a hunting lodge and party house and so forth, and he kept it for a good while, and I guess then he sort of said it's time to move on and so forth. But years had passed now at this stage, and he sold it, and probably the young people now in the tour here now may not remember such a program, but maybe some of the people closer to me. There was two programs on. One was Dallas, and the other was Dynasty. They were both big series. Well, the guy that bought from the Guinness family was a guy called Burn, and he actually owned the house in Dynasty that was used in all the series of Dynasty. He was mega rich. At the time, he was a multi-millionaire. If he was around today, he'd be a multi-billionaire. Right? So he bought the house. He bought it as a present for his daughter, who was going to be getting married fairly soon. And he gave it as a present to his daughter. And the daughter had a short time, but about two or three lovely years. And unfortunately, the daughter died suddenly. So he was heartbroken. Was unsure what to do, really. Devastated, obviously, with his daughter after dying so young. But the years had passed, and Ireland had gained their independence from England in 1922. So he actually gifted it to the Irish nation, and it became one of our first national parks. So, out of a tragedy came something that was very generous and, very good for Ireland as well. So they're the backstories behind the Killarney Lakes and Muckross House and so forth, Ladies View. So if people are a little bit afraid of long tunnels, I suggest you maybe close your eyes pretty soon, and we'll tell you in about maybe 30 seconds or so that you can open your eyes again. So I close them if I be, and we'll see. Okay, we're through. No bother. So, all right. So I'll just slow down here a little bit, but you'll see a picture of the mansion of Muckross House, Victorian mansion here. It's on a big poster type picture here. Travis Gardens then to the front and to the rear, and it's looking out onto one of the lakes of Killarney. So nearly everything on the left here is to do with accommodation. This is Muckross Road, all the way into Killarney. And then the left hand side is mainly the National Park. Now there are 2 hotels there in the National Park, but that's it. And as we get a bit closer to Killarney, then there'll be accommodation kind of on both sides of the road. So we'll see how parking goes. It can be a challenge, and you can get lucky too entirely. So, but just to give you your bearings a small bit, in the middle here, we call this a roundabout, but it's kind of a square roundabout. But
I'm in Cork out. I've been on a lot of places today. I don't know if you can hear me. The volume is off goodness on the mic, I think. Anyway, we're in Kerry itself. Our last stop of the day. The tour, so I think you guys enjoy the view of it at first. I'm going to be turning it off afterwards. I actually stayed in that hotel once. Once only. And then that's that hotel which is back there you've seen is where I stayed the last time. But it was a few years ago since I've been here. So lads, I'm going to actually turn this off now and I'll see you guys in the next trip hopefully soon. And I'm not thinking I'm going to speak or anything. But anyway, have a good evening. Good time watching these videos.
So we're back at that brown sign, going the other direction now. We've just left the county of Kerry and we're back into County Cork now. So just to finish off and share more bits of contrasting information between Cork and Kerry neighbours really. And if we look at in terms of size and landmass, Cork is the largest county in Ireland. It's number one in terms of size. And Kerry is number 5. So it's in the top 5. It's not that much smaller than Cork, but as you've probably seen today, there's a lot of mountains and boglands, etc. So in terms of habitable pieces of Kerry, it's more limited. And many people would think that Killarney might be the largest town in Kerry, but it's not. It's 14,500 people in Killarney, and but there's 27,000 people in Tralee, where the Rose of Tralee competition is from. And then there's a number of other towns, but they're all really 15, even under 10,000 in terms of right across the county of Kerry. So they all have relatively small populations, really. Whereas, so when you put all of Kerry together, you have about 155,000 in Kerry. If you look at Cork, and just look at Cork city and the suburbs, there's 235,000. So even just the city and suburbs of Cork City are larger than bigger than the full population of Kerry County. And then Cork, being a big county, and the land is very good as well. So they have a lot of large towns, really, essentially, in the county of Cork. You know, with 25,000 people, 30,000 people, etc. So there's numbers of that. So the full population of Cork comes up to about 555,000, County Cork. So really, 155,000 for Kerry, 555,000 for Cork. But then Cork being number 2, but it's still way below Dublin, which would be a much smaller county. But if you look at the city and suburbs of Dublin alone, you nearly have 1.5 million in Dublin itself. So that's finish it off there, I think, with the sharing of information. Hope you enjoyed the sharing of information on the different topics today. And I'll be focusing on the driving now, getting home everybody safely. We'll be following more or less the same course that we came down, quite similar. So we'll share the information there. We'll see in a while. I'll be try and put on a little bit of soft music or something for you. Well, I'm going to wait till I pull over and see how one of these doors is doing. It's just making a bit of a wind noise, so let's see if we can make that a bit better in a while.
was the night. Yeah. Yeah.
When you reach the part where the heartaches come, the hero won't be me. Heroes often fail. You won't read that book again because the ending's just too hard to take. I walk away like a movie star who gets burned in a three-way street into number two. Would be green away the scene of bringing all the good things out in me. Now it's okay. Never thought I could act this way. I've got to say that I just don't get it. I don't know where we went wrong, but the feeling's gone and I just can't get it back. If you could read my mind, what a tale my heart's gonna tell. Just like an old time out of those fortune bells in a castle top or a farm straw with chains on my feet. The story always ends. If you read between the lines, you'll know that I'm just trying to understand the feeling missing last. Never thought I could feel this way, and I've got to say that I just don't get it. I don't know where we went wrong, but the feeling's gone, and I just can't get it back.